The 1960s gave us some of the most memorable faces in entertainment history. But for every star who made it to the very top, there were others whose light burned just as bright, but flickered out far too soon. Their names may not be on everyone's lips today, but their stories deserve to be remembered. These are the 6 most tragic stories of 1960s forgotten stars. Number 6. Inger Stevens.
Not going out tonight again?
Well, I do have tomorrow afternoon open.
I do not have tomorrow afternoon open. I'm taking the boys to a television show.
Inger Stevens had the kind of beauty that stopped people in their tracks. Born in Stockholm, Sweden in 1934, she arrived in America at age 13 after a childhood marked by her mother's abandonment. That early heartbreak would shadow her for the rest of her life, even as she climbed to the heights of Hollywood success.
Why, that's some fancy mind reading.
With recovering that chair will set your mind at ease.
Oh, Glenn, I don't want to give you the wrong impression.
By the early 1960s, Inger had become one of television's brightest stars. Her role as Katrin Holstrom in the popular series The Farmer's Daughter made her a household name. From 1963 to 1966, she was charming, talented, and seemingly had everything going for her. The show earned her an Emmy Award and opened doors to film roles alongside major stars like Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood.
What are these?
Advertising.
Babysitters Limited, Stephen Morley, President. Personalized Pet Care Corporation, Stephen Morley, President.
But behind those sparkling blue eyes lived a woman haunted by loneliness and depression. Inger's personal life was a series of disappointments. She fell for her leading men, only to watch those relationships crumble. Bing Crosby, James Mason, Anthony Quinn, Harry Belafonte, all left her heartbroken. In 1959, on New Year's Day, she attempted suicide after a failed romance. She survived, and for a while, it seemed like she had turned a corner.
One of the astronauts forgot something.
Just what did he forget?
A clean hanky.
Throughout the 1960s, Inger continued working steadily in both television and film. She appeared in everything from The Twilight Zone to Bonanza, always bringing depth and sensitivity to her roles. Friends and colleagues admired her professionalism, but few knew about the darkness she battled privately. She kept her struggles hidden behind a bright smile and unwavering work ethic.
You have already collected $19.50.
That's right.
Then why hasn't Stephen paid his debt?
On April 30th, 1970, Inger's housekeeper found her unresponsive in her Hollywood Hills home. The coroner ruled her death a probable suicide from an overdose of barbiturates. The news shocked everyone who knew her. Just days before, she had seemed fine, making plans for future projects. Her death certificate listed the cause as acute barbiturate intoxication. Inger Stevens left behind a body of work that showcased her considerable talent, but she never got to show the world everything she was capable of. Her story remains a reminder that fame and success cannot always heal the wounds of a troubled heart.
Hey, time? Then why is it for 3 weeks you've been spending every evening working just to find out how to save time so you won't have to spend every evening working?
Number 5. Salvatore Mineo Jr.
I don't know. You have to get to know him. He doesn't say much, but when he does, you know he means it. He's sincere.
As a tough kid who ran with street gangs, nobody could have predicted that he would become one of Hollywood's most sensitive young actors. But that's exactly what happened when, at just 16, he was cast in Rebel Without a Cause, alongside James Dean.
Right. What'd you come back here for?
'Cause I'd run away. Oh, I used to run away a lot, but they always took me back.
The 1955 film made Sal an overnight sensation. His portrayal of Plato, the troubled teen who idolized James Dean's character, earned him an Academy Award nomination at age 17. He became the 5th youngest person ever nominated in the Best Supporting Actor category. Teenage girls screamed his name, and fan mail poured in by the thousands. For a brief, shining moment, Sal Mineo was one of the hottest young stars in Hollywood.
Oh, he's dead. He was a hero in the China Sea.
He tried to capitalize on that success. Throughout the late 1950s and early 1960s, His role in Exodus in 1960 brought him a second Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe win. He even released a couple of pop singles that made it onto the charts. But as he aged out of the troubled teen roles that made him famous, Hollywood seemed to lose interest. By the time the 1960s were in full swing, the phone had stopped ringing. Part of the problem was that Sal Mineo was ahead of his time. He was openly living as a gay man in an era when that could destroy a career. While some admired his courage, it cost him roles. The leading man parts he dreamed of never materialized. Instead, he found himself taking smaller roles in forgettable films and television shows.
Happiness. That's what everyone wants, isn't it? Happiness.
By the mid-1970s, Sal had reinvented himself in theater, directing and starring in edgy productions. In 1976, he was in Los Angeles, rehearsing for a play when his life came to a brutal end. On the night of February 12th, as he returned home from rehearsal, someone attacked him in the carport of his West Hollywood apartment. He was stabbed once in the chest and died within minutes. He was 37 years old.
Hey, you know you can trust me, baby. It's only CW who doesn't like to deal with crooks.
The murder shocked Hollywood and remained unsolved for years. Finally, in 1979, a drifter named Lionel Ray Williams was convicted of the killing during a botched robbery. Sal Mineo's death robbed the world of a talented actor who had been on the verge of a comeback. His legacy lives on in those two extraordinary performances that earned him Oscar nominations, reminders of what might have been.
Now look, nobody's gonna hurt you, all right? Now, I want you to start right from the beginning, okay? Now, what happened?
Number 4. Florence Ballard. When Florence Ballard stood on stage with Diana Ross and Mary Wilson, she had no idea she was helping to create history. The Supremes would become the most successful American vocal group of the 1960s, with 12 #1 singles. But for Florence, the dream would turn into a nightmare. Born in Detroit in 1943, Florence grew up in the Brewster Douglas housing projects. She had a powerful, soulful voice that could shake the rafters of her Baptist church. In 1959, she formed a group with her neighborhood friends Mary Wilson and Diana Ross. They called themselves the Primettes, and Florence actually chose their eventual name, the Supremes, when they signed with Motown in 1961. In the early days, Florence often sang lead vocals. Her voice on songs like Buttered Popcorn showcased her incredible range and power. The sound engineers had to position her 17 feet from the microphone, because her voice was so strong it distorted the recording equipment. But everything changed in 1963, when Motown's Berry Gordy decided that Diana Ross would be the group's sole lead singer. Florence watched from the background as the Supremes became superstars. While Diana got the spotlight, Florence and Mary wore matching gowns and swayed behind her. The hits kept coming. Where Did Our Love Go? Baby Love. Stop. In the Name of Love. But Florence's resentment grew. She had founded the group, chosen its name, and possessed the strongest voice, yet she stood in the shadows. Behind the scenes, Florence's life was unraveling. A traumatic assault when she was a teenager had left deep psychological scars. She began drinking heavily to cope with her frustration and disappointment. Her weight fluctuated, and she started showing up late or missing performances altogether. In July 1967, Berry Gordy fired her from the group she had created. She was just 24 years old. Florence tried to launch a solo career, signing with ABC Records, but the label gave her little support. Her 2 singles went nowhere. Her settlement from leaving the Supremes should have set her up financially, but her attorney embezzled most of the money. By the early 1970s, Florence was living in poverty in Detroit, raising 3 daughters on welfare.
I believe in yesterday.
On February 22, 1976, Florence Ballard died of a heart attack caused by a blood clot. She was only 32 years old and had just $2 in her bank account. At her funeral, her former Motown colleagues showed up to pay respects. When Diana Ross arrived and took a seat with the family, some fans outside the church booed. Florence Ballard had died forgotten by the music industry, a tragic fate for one of the Supremes. Number 3. Dorothy Dandridge.
I want a brown gown with a zop top with a hip slip, a lace waist.
Dorothy Dandridge made history in 1954 when she became the first African-American woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar. Her performance in Carmen Jones had captivated audiences and critics alike, and for a moment, it seemed like Hollywood might finally be ready to embrace a black leading lady. But America, in the 1950s and 1960s, had other ideas.
Love ain't nobody's angel child, and he won't pay any mind to you.
Born in Cleveland in 1922, Dorothy started performing as a child with her sister Vivian. Their mother Ruby pushed them into show business, and by the time Dorothy was a teenager, she was working in films. But the only roles available to black actresses were as maids and servants. Dorothy dreamed of something more, and in the early 1950s, she got her chance.
And to have your ham and eggs in Carolina, when you hear the whistle blowing into the bar.
Her breakthrough came with Carmen Jones, Otto Preminger's all-black musical adaptation of the opera Carmen. Dorothy's sultry, powerful performance made her a star overnight. In November 1954, she became the first black woman to grace the cover of Life magazine. She was also the first black performer to headline at the Waldorf Astoria's prestigious Empire Room in New York.
Okay, kill me now, or let me go.
Last time.
For the last time.
The world seemed to be at her feet. But the 1950s and early 1960s offered few roles for a black actress, no matter how talented or beautiful. Hollywood simply didn't know what to do with Dorothy Dandridge. She couldn't be paired romantically with white actors due to the social taboos of the time, and there weren't enough substantial roles written for black women. After Carmen Jones, the parts dried up. She made a handful of films including Porgy and Bess in 1959, but nothing matched her earlier triumph.
Don't say I didn't tell you true. I told you truly.
Her personal life was equally troubled. Her first marriage to dancer Harold Nicholas ended after he had numerous affairs, and their daughter was born with severe brain damage. The guilt and heartbreak of placing her daughter in an institution haunted Dorothy for the rest of her life. Her second marriage to a white restaurant owner named Jack Dennison was a disaster. He was abusive and controlling, and when they divorced in 1962, Dorothy was left bankrupt.
Why don't you tell me?
You think what you want.
By 1965, Dorothy was struggling with depression and relying on alcohol and prescription pills to get through the day. On September 8th, she was found dead in her West Hollywood apartment, lying on the bathroom floor. The autopsy showed she had died from an overdose of antidepressants. Whether it was accidental or intentional, no one knows for sure. What is certain is that she left behind just over $2 in her bank account and a note asking that nothing she was wearing be removed. Dorothy Dandridge blazed a trail that later black actresses like Halle Berry would follow. But she paid a terrible price for being ahead of her time, and her tragic end came far too soon.
My baby, that's the end of you. So take your cue, boy.
Number 2. Pete Duel.
Well, what it means is there's more chicken thieves, land grabbers, and rag-picking penny stealers around than there is lawmen. So if a man wants to turn himself in, governor might see fit to wipe his slate clean.
Pete Duel had the kind of smile that lit up a television screen. Born Peter Duel in 1940 in Rochester, New York, he seemed destined for a long and successful career. He was handsome, talented, and by 1971, he was starring in one of television's most popular news shows, Alias, Smith and Jones. But the pressures of fame and his own inner demons would prove too much to bear.
This was Lom's idea?
Oh, relax. Just trying to make sure we stay out of trouble, huh?
Oh, well, fine. Without a gun?
Pete grew up in a comfortable middle-class family. His father was a doctor, and young Pete originally thought about following in those footsteps. He attended St. Lawrence University, where he studied English and appeared in every drama department production. It was there that he discovered his true calling. Acting wasn't just something he enjoyed, it consumed him. He wanted to be a serious actor, the kind who tackled meaningful roles on Broadway and in important films. After 2 years of formal training at the American Theater Wing in New York, Pete did exactly that. He worked off-Broadway, honing his craft in small productions. He even toured with the stage production of Take Her, She's Mine. But like so many young actors in the early 1960s, the pull of Hollywood was too strong to resist. In 1963, he packed his bags and headed west.
Oh, of course, ma'am. One way or another, yes.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Pete's path to stardom followed a familiar Hollywood pattern. After studying acting in New York, he moved to Los Angeles in the early 1960s to try his luck. Small parts followed, guest spots on shows like The Fugitive and Ironside. In 1965, he landed a regular role on Gidget opposite Sally Field, which led to another series called Love on a Rooftop in 1966. His natural charm and easygoing screen presence made him perfect for romantic comedy roles. But both shows were canceled after just one season, leaving Pete frustrated and wondering if television success would ever come.
A little experiment on the correlation of auditory distractions and reaction time in a normal adult male.
You?
In 1967, Universal Studios saw potential in the young actor and signed him to a 7-year contract. More guest appearances followed, and Pete kept working, kept hoping for that one big break. It finally came in 1970 when he was offered the lead role in a new Western series called Alias Smith and Jones. The concept was simple, but clever. 2 former outlaws trying to earn an amnesty by staying out of trouble for a year, all while bounty hunters and lawmen pursued them.
No, you can't.
He's asking for it.
All right. I'm asking for something, too. Something we ain't never had a chance at before.
He ain't got no chance now. That eyeballer knows who I am.
But we can't be sure, not unless you go and prove it for him.
The Western comedy paired Pete with Ben Murphy as 2 outlaws trying to go straight. Pete played Hannibal Hayes, the charming one with all the plans, while Murphy played his partner Kid Curry, the fast draw. The show debuted in January 1971 and quickly became a hit, especially with younger viewers. The chemistry between Pete and Ben was undeniable. They played off each other perfectly, bringing humor and humanity to what could have been just another shoot-'em-up Western. Pete Duel was on his way to becoming a major television star.
Yours, Hank.
No. We bought them broomtails off a herd, must have been 2,000 strong. Now, it's just likely somebody else bought a couple.
Yeah, maybe.
Teen magazines put his face on their covers. Fan clubs formed across the country. At 31, Pete had finally achieved the fame he'd been working toward for nearly a decade. But something was wrong. The success he dreamed about felt like a prison. Instead of challenging dramatic roles, he was stuck playing the same charming outlaw week after week. The schedule was brutal. Long days on set, little time for anything else. This wasn't the kind of acting he'd trained for, the kind he'd dreamed about back in New York.
He's just back there trying to build up our prices with banks and railroads before he cashes us in.
Pete hated the grind of a weekly series. In interviews, he openly complained about how the relentless schedule was destroying him as an actor. He told one reporter just 3 weeks before his death that television series work was the ultimate trap, that it slowly destroyed any artistic integrity an actor might have. He felt trapped, churning out episode after episode of what he considered mediocre television. The role that made him famous also made him miserable. He began drinking heavily to cope with his frustration and depression.
I say we blow that bank right now.
Right. That'll show folks he should have stuck around here doing his job instead of going out to the Capitol to feather his nest.
Those who worked with him noticed the change. Some days Pete would arrive on set energized and professional. Other days, he seemed distant, going through the motions. Director Egbert Swackamer, who worked with Pete multiple times, later described him as having a self-destructive urge despite being naturally talented. The alcohol was becoming a serious problem, affecting not just his work, but his entire life. In May 1971, Pete was arrested for drunk driving after he crashed his car and injured 2 people. The judge gave him a fine, but no jail time. Friends and family knew he was struggling, but no one knew how desperate he had become. The show had just been renewed for a 3rd season, which meant at least another year of the work he despised. Pete saw no way out. His 7-year contract with Universal meant he was locked in, and breaking it would have meant financial ruin and the end of his career.
That's what I thought I heard him say.
His parents were planning to visit for New Year's weekend. Christmas presents sat wrapped under Pete's tree, waiting for them. He had seemed in good spirits that final week, according to those who worked with him. On December 30th, he finished filming for the day around 7 p.m. Everything seemed normal. On the night of December 30th, 1971, Pete spent the evening at home with his girlfriend, Diane Ray. They watched an episode of Alias, Smith and Jones together. Pete called the show trash and switched to a basketball game. After his girlfriend went to bed, he stayed up drinking. His stand-in Harold Frizzell had watched part of the game with him and left around 10 p.m., later telling police that Pete had seemed sober at that point. But sometime after midnight, Pete's drinking intensified. Just after 1 a.m., he walked into the bedroom, retrieved his revolver, and told Diane he'd see her later. Moments later, she heard a gunshot. Pete Duel had shot himself in the head. He was 31 years old.
Don't you see? They're trying so hard to go straight. Hoping for amnesty. Now, we ain't got no right to go wrecking their chances now.
The news of his death shocked millions of fans who had tuned in every week to watch his adventures as Hannibal Hayes. When the story broke on New Year's Eve, it made headlines across the country, in a way that's hard to imagine for a television actor today. Teenagers wept. Adults who'd grown to love the show sat in stunned disbelief. The production company wanted to cancel the series out of respect, but ABC refused, threatening to sue if they didn't continue. Within 12 hours of Pete's death, the cast and crew were back on set filming scenes that didn't involve him.
Kid, may I remind you, we are dealing with a Brooker 404.
The show continued with actor Roger Davis replacing him, but it was never the same. The magic that Pete and Ben had created together was gone. The series limped along for another season before being canceled. Pete Duel's tragic suicide robbed television of one of its most promising young stars, a man who wanted to be remembered as a serious actor, but ended up becoming another casualty of Hollywood's relentless machine.
You gotta prove you deserve it.
So all we have to do is just stay out of trouble till the governor figures we deserve it.
Number 1. Brian Jones. Brian Jones didn't just play in the Rolling Stones, he founded them. In 1962, he brought together Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, came up with the band's name, and served as their original leader. But by 1969, his story would end in a swimming pool, shrouded in mystery and controversy. Born in Cheltenham, England in 1942, Brian was a musical prodigy who taught himself guitar and harmonica. He loved the blues, especially the music of Elmore James and Robert Johnson. In his early 20s, he had a vision of forming a blues-based rock band. When he met Mick and Keith, the pieces fell into place. The Rolling Stones were born, named after a Muddy Waters song that Brian loved. In the early and mid-1960s, Brian was the heart of the Stones. He was the one experimenting with different instruments, the sitar, dulcimer, marimba, adding exotic textures to their sound. He was also the bad boy, the one with the wild hair and the wildest lifestyle. But as Jagger and Richards began writing hit songs together, Brian's role in the band diminished. He wasn't a songwriter, and suddenly that mattered more than being a multi-instrumentalist.
Oh, my sweet Marie.
By 1967, Brian's drug use had spiraled out of control. He was arrested twice for marijuana possession, which made it impossible for him to get a visa to tour America with the band. His attendance at recording sessions became erratic. When he did show up, he was often too intoxicated to play. The other Stones began turning off his amplifier during sessions, letting Keith play all the guitar parts. Brian Jones was being pushed out of his own band. In June 1969, Mick and Keith officially fired him. Brian issued a statement saying he wanted to play his own kind of music, and that the Stones' direction no longer interested him. He retreated to his country estate, Cochford Farm, the same property where Winnie the Pooh author A.A. Milne had once lived. Brian talked about forming a new band and making a comeback, but he never got the chance. On the night of July 2, 1969, Brian held a small party at his home. Several people were there, including his girlfriend Anna Wolin and a builder named Frank Thorogood, who had been working on the property. Around midnight, Brian went for a swim in his pool. Shortly after, Anna found him floating motionless at the bottom. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Brian Jones was dead at age 27. The official verdict was death by misadventure, drowning while under the influence of alcohol and drugs. But questions remained. Years later, rumors surfaced that Thorogood had confessed to holding Brian underwater during an argument. No charges were ever filed, and the case was never reopened. 2 days after Brian's death, the Rolling Stones performed a free concert in Hyde Park, dedicating it to their fallen founder. Brian Jones became the first member of the tragic 27 Club, a group that would later include Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison. These 6 stars shined brightly during the 1960s, bringing joy and inspiration to millions. But behind the glamour and success, each one struggled with demons that ultimately cut their lives tragically short. Inger Stevens, Sal Mineo, Florence Ballard, Dorothy Dandridge, Pete Duel, and Brian Jones may be forgotten by some today, but their contributions to entertainment history deserve to be remembered. If you enjoyed learning about these forgotten stars, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories from Hollywood's golden era. What other forgotten stars from the 1960s would you like us to cover? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.